the feeling that comes after you sacrifice. It's one of those things in the back and on the other side of it, if you knew that feeling was going to be there before you made the sacrifice, you'd be more likely to make the sacrifice. But we get so stuck in our current feeling. Like at the end of going to the gym, it feels that good and you feel like, man, I deserve to look good. You start to build your deserve more. Just same thing with savings. Like if you're like, man, I choose not to spend money on that, even though, man, I really want to buy that. But you start looking on the back end and knowing that, hey, a couple years down the road, you're going to feel so great knowing that, man, I'm a good custodian of my finances. I can give the way I want to give. I can set myself up for retirement the way I want to be set up. And that's applicable to any and everything. So I think we can get on the other side of how we feel in the present moment and ask ourselves, how are we going to feel once it's got us not wanting to? It's a big deal.
Here's what I've learned as a leader: sacrificing your feelings is a must. There's many times, not just in ministry, but in business, as a dad, as a husband, when I have to put my feelings to the side for the betterment of those who I'm leading. For example, not every time I show up and I have to speak in public or do a podcast or lead a meeting, do I feel like doing that. Now, would the people in the room or around me know that I don't feel that way? Absolutely not, because I sacrifice my feeling for the betterment of the thing that I'm trying to lead. This only works for you if you actually want to level up. Like if you want to lead. If not, live in your feelings all day. Be sad, be mad, be glad, be up, be down. But if you want to level up, you have to learn how to sacrifice your feelings. Everyone, welcome back to the Leveled Up Life podcast. My name is Branamier. As always, I'm here with Paul McLean, bringing you another episode. It's going to be an amazing topic today, a good subject to get into, something that's not talked about enough in our world, I think, something that we all do, and it's that word sacrifice. It's almost like a cuss word nowadays, sacrifice. What does that mean? What does that mean in your life? What does that mean to you? We're going to give you three necessary or three essential sacrifices that we must do in order to level up our life. And just as a reminder, this podcast is all about helping you level up your life in every single area that matters the most to you. For us, it's faith, it's family, it's fitness, it's finance, and our franchise, our business, right? All that stuff. And so every single week, we're bringing you information to hopefully bring you revelation, and that you will do something. You'll change your life. You'll grow into the person that you could and should be. And so we're here to help you on that journey. So,
well, it's good to be here with you again, dude. Honor as it is every single week.
Absolutely.
And guys, I think Brand said it right. Our heart and mission is to bring you value, where every single week you are empowered and equipped to go out there and reach new levels in your life. And this word is, Brand, it's one of those words where like nobody wants to talk about it. Everybody knows that it's required, right? And these three things, I could tell you this, as we go through them and you're kind of thinking about them, if you're not willing to sacrifice in these three things, you're going to have to either one, lower your expectation on where you want your life to go. Because if you don't, you're going to just be frustrated day in, day out. And I think when most, especially nowadays, think about like all the highlight reels and all the social media posts, and you'll see somebody that's like, man, they're thriving, they're killing it financially, or it seems like their marriage is great. But all those results, what they don't show is all the underlining sacrifice, man. Right. All that pain that you had to endure, those early mornings, those late nights, and all those things that you have to walk through. And I remember always saying, like, man, if you say, I want that success, I want my marriage to look like that, I want my business to look like that, I want my financial situation to look like that, I want my fitness to look like that. That's one of those things that you can see, right? You can't see everybody's bank account, but you can see everybody's fitness level. And so, you might say like, those are the things that I want, but at the end of the day, there's things that have to be sacrificed in order to level up. And I remember early on, Brand, I sat down, I remember I was 19 and I was in a meeting, and they said, like, write down some of the things that you want to accomplish in your life. Right. And I started putting that down, and then the guy said, right next to that, draw a line, and he put next to it what you're willing to give up for it. And I remember that practice being one of the most like important practices I'd ever put in place to really give me the right perspective on what it was truly going to take to get there. And that's really what we're going to talk about today, guys, is unpacking that, like that T chart. Okay, you want this, but what are you willing to give up to get that? Like, are you willing to pay the price? What sacrifices are you going to need to make, regardless of what that is, to go after and level up in those areas? And
That's
so,
good.
I mean, I think that's the thing
That's
that
really
we're
good.
going to unpack.
I
Man.
think there's a big gap between what we say we want and then what we are willing to give up for what we want.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, I think about getting like a gift or something for Christmas. Like you get, every Christmas you get stuff that you don't really like.
Yeah.
Or and then what do? You're like, I'm gonna re-gift this thing. I'm gonna repurpose it and package it and give it to someone else as a gift. And then we'll be like, yeah, I'm just gonna sacrifice the gift that like someone else gave me. It's like, well, you didn't really want that thing anyways. Just because you gave it up doesn't mean it's a sacrifice. Or like, I don't know, many examples, but the point is like sacrifice should cost you something.
Yeah.
Sacrifice there should be a cost, almost like it hurts a little bit to give something up, because when there's sacrifice, typically for me in my life, on the other side of a sacrifice came my biggest like breakthrough.
Sure. Yeah.
Like when I was first getting started in ministry, I remember we were asked to lead the high school ministry. And at the time I had, Bronx, who was young, Blaze, who was young, like two babies essentially. Like I didn't have any high schoolers. And it's like they asked me to give up my Wednesday nights, my Sunday mornings, and that turned into, giving up all kinds of things, right? Throughout the 5-6 year period that we did that. But my biggest breakthrough came on the other side of all that sacrifice. And that's, all that time spent pouring into that is what actually led me into the position I'm in today. So like, but it hurt. It cost me something. It cost me my time. It cost me my money. It cost me my energy, my effort. Like it costs a lot of stuff. And that's what we want to talk about, because with every sacrifice, man, there's significance.
Yeah.
So,
I'll tell you what, man. And the great thing too is like the feeling that comes after you sacrifice. It's one of those things in the back and on the other side of it. If you knew like that feeling was going to be there before you made the sacrifice, you'd be more likely to make the sacrifice. But we get so stuck in our current feeling.
Yeah.
Like we can like know like at the end of going to the gym, right? Like it feels that good and you feel like, man, I deserve to look good. You start to build your deserve more. Just same thing with savings. Like if you're like, man, I choose not to spend money on that, even though, man, I really want to buy that. But you start looking on the back end and knowing that, hey, a couple years down the road, you're going to feel so great knowing that, man, I'm a good custodian of my finances. I can give the way I want to give. I can set myself up for retirement the way I want to be set up. And that's applicable to any and everything. So I think if we can get on the other side of how we feel in the present moment and ask ourselves, how are we going to feel once we sacrifice that thing that's got us not wanting to, it's a big deal. And so the first thing we want to unpack, guys, is point number one, and the essential sacrifice that will need to be made is you got to have to sacrifice your feelings. And so, Brian, can you kind of start unpacking that?
That's hard, because there are feelings. Like it's how I feel. Why should I have to give up how I feel to help you, or to help the room, or to help the business, or to help those around me? Why should I sacrifice my feelings for anyone else? But here's what I've learned as a leader: sacrificing your feelings is a must.
Yep.
Like there's many times, not just in ministry, but in business, as a dad, right, as a husband, when I have to put my feelings to the side for the betterment of those who I'm leading. So, for example, not every time I show up and I have to speak in public or do a podcast or lead a meeting, do I feel like doing that?
Yep.
Now, would the people in the room or around me know that I don't feel that way? Absolutely not, because I sacrifice my feeling for the betterment of the thing that I'm trying to lead. And I think most people, I mean, this only works for you if you actually, want to level up. Like if you want to lead, if you want to, if not, live in your feelings all day. Like have at it. Be sad, be mad, be glad, be up, be down. Do you, boo? Yeah. But if you want to level up, like you have to learn how to sacrifice your feelings. And it's easier said than done, because feelings are real. Feelings are raw. Feelings are emotional. And so as a leader, I have to make a conscious decision to go, hey, I'm willing to give up the way I feel in the moment, because I could see how it will affect those who I'm leading if I don't. So if I'm getting ready to lead a meeting and I just had a fight with Mariah, or if I just, got bad news on the phone and I walk into that room and try to, let out all my feelings on those people, and then I'm leading with low energy, I am just talking down to them because I'm all in my feelings. well, then guess what? No one's going to want to follow for that much longer. But if I'm willing to sacrifice how I feel for the betterment of those I'm leading,
It's good.
well, then, I mean, but again, it's easier said than done. I mean, that's just one aspect of it, though. Like talk about like sacrificing your feelings, even when it comes to like your marriage or relationships or friendships. Like, what does that look like for you?
I mean, dude, you're 100% right. I remember hearing this a long time ago. It said that, and I read it in a book. It said, the moment you become a leader, you give up the ability or the right to be average and ordinary.
Yeah.
Like, you can't do that no more, right? And the reality is this: if somebody's watching, it's like, well, dude, I'm not a leader. I'm not leading a church. I'm not leading an organization. I'm not leading a business. Oh, you're a leader. Leadership is influence. And so if you've got a kid, you're a leader. If you're in a relationship with anybody, you're a leader, because every relationship is mutually influenced, right? You know, you're going to start to act, behave, think, talk a lot like the person you spend a lot of time with, right? Which means that there's influence taking place. And so I think that's such an important thing. And I just believe that when you have the big picture of, you know, I'm going into this conversation with my wife, I'm going into this conversation with my child, what do I want to accomplish here? What do I want to be? What's the end goal? That kind of helps mitigate the emotion, right? Because, dude, I got 5 kids, and like sometimes it's just like I want to go in and just like blow it all up, and like, you know, it's just like, what's going on? Like they'll be fighting with each other, disrespect, you know, that stuff happens, right? And so I have to slow down and say, okay, listen, I can't just like match my daughter's emotion. She's 8. Right. Like, what do I want to accomplish? Now, did she just say something disrespectful? Yeah. Like, she did. But what's my best move right here?
Yeah, but what's your feeling in that moment?
Well, my feeling in that moment is wanting to like freak out, dude. Like throw in her a cage, lock up the key, dude. And like, you know.
So that's what we're talking about, like sacrificing that feeling of reaction, like returning an eye for an eye.
Yeah. And it's just, I think it comes down to like really understanding the big picture and knowing like, hey, what do I really want to achieve here? No different than, see, I remember in sales, man, I'd talk to these agents and I'd say, how did the appointment go? And he'd be like, it went terrible. I was like, what happened? Like the guy just didn't care about his wife. He didn't want to get financial services in place. Didn't want life. He just didn't care about his wife. I was like, what did you say? Because so the guy says, hey, I don't want to buy anything. You're just a sales guy. I don't want the presentation. And so what did you say? He said, well, you obviously don't care about your wife, do you? I said, did that make you feel good? He said, yeah, it made me feel good. You guy's an idiot, you know? I'm like, all right, so either you want satisfaction or you want a solution. Yeah. See, satisfaction is feeling. That's me acting out of my feeling. I feel satisfied. Like, that felt good, right? Yeah. Like, in the moment for a second, but in the end, you didn't help the client. Right. And you didn't get paid. Yep. Those are a lot worse than satisfaction in my mind. 100%. And so I learned early on, man, you got to be disciplined and understand, like, what's the big picture? So the big picture is like this guy's saying, you know, like, you know, you're just a seller, or he's labeling you, he's not treating you the way. And then you got to stop and say, okay, what's my next best move to not operate out of that emotion? And then you got to understand that person's emotion. Maybe they got somebody to sell them something that they didn't really want, ask for, or need, and they got taken advantage of. So if I can understand their emotion, then I can go ahead and really dispower the emotion that I've got, that if I act out of, it's going to really lead me to an outcome that I don't want. I think that's very applicable to your marriage, right? Like, you know, when you're in those debates and the arguments and the fighting, that just happens, right? And if you're like, my marriage, I've never fought, well then, I don't know. You get on and give us some advice.
Yeah, where's your podcast?
Yeah, that ain't me.
Put it in the chat.
There's disagreements. Like, we're human beings, and so you know, early on when I just got married, I was 19, and I've learned. I still have many mishaps and a lot to learn, but you know, it was just acting out of emotion. Like, oh, I feel angry, I'm gonna act angry. Right. I feel disrespected, I'm going to go ahead and act out of the disrespect. All those different things. And at the end of the day, all it does is makes it worse. 100%. And so as you pursue these next levels, like, feelings can even be like doubt. Like, that's a feeling. And so if you're going to live in a feeling of doubt, you're never going to take the step forward. And faith is an action. So I'm either going to live out of my feelings or out of faith. Faith is a vision. It's confidence in what you hope for and assurance what you don't see. So maybe in that moment, in that emotion, I don't see the solution. I don't see where it can go, but my faith is like, I want a good marriage. My faith is, man, I want to be fit. My faith is I want to have a good financial situation. So am I feeling, if I'm doubtful that that can take place, if I feel like overwhelmed, if I feel like it's not going to happen, if I feel angry, if I feel frustrated, if I feel hopeless, I'm not going to act out of that emotion. I'm going to choose faith. And faith is I'm going to take a step out of that emotion and move towards where I want to go. And I think that's a big part of it.
That's good. So we have to prioritize the relationships over our feelings.
Yeah, it's good.
Right. So, and it's easy to do when you're the leader of the organization or you're the parent. But what happens when it's peer to peer? Like, what if you offend me? What if I catch you gossiping about me? What if I catch you talking bad about the organization or whatever it is? Naturally, we want to respond and retaliate. But as a leader, as men of faith, like we don't have the right to respond how everyone else would respond.
Yeah.
Even though like we've been hurt, we've been talked about, we've been gossiped about, or whatever the case is. As a leader, as someone who's trying to level up your life, you have to sacrifice the way you feel in order to better lead those around you. Like it's hard to do. It's not always easy because the feeling of satisfaction is real and you get it in the moment, but like you're doing so much damage and you think you're hurting the other person by like retaliating or, by saying how you want or, responding the way that your flesh wants to respond. You think you're hurting them, but in reality, you're hurting. Number one, you're full of pride. You're full of ego. You're not showing any humility. And then you have to live life with regret. And I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have responded that way. I'm better than that. I know better than that. I'm not ignorant. Like I know how I should respond, and then I didn't do it, and that this snowball effect of
it's like you're taking a poisonous pill,
100%,
and I'm hoping you die.
Right.
like
exactly.
I'm going to take this,
exactly.
and I'm hoping that you're going to be gone tomorrow.
So the sacrifice of feeling, that's a good one, a really good one. The second big sacrifice, if you want to level up your life, I mean, there's probably a million things that you have to sacrifice as a leader. Yeah. But the second sacrifice that we wrote down, if you want to level up your life, is the sacrifice of time. Sacrifice of time. Time is our most valuable asset, right? It's like something that you can't pay for. It's something you can't get back. Like once that moment is gone, it is gone. But as a leader, as someone who wants to level up your life, man, how do you sacrifice the short term for the long term? Because that's really what it's about, right? Like, can I sacrifice something in this moment for a vision of something that's much greater in the future? And so talk about like, how do we sacrifice our time? What are practical ways that we can sacrifice? What does that look like? How do we not give into the temptation of like, almost like instant gratification?
Yeah.
Like this morning we went and worked out. I got there at 5:30. You got the 5:45. No big deal.
I was preparing for the podcast.
You were praying for me.
Make sure that this was going to be
some big deal. But I sacrificed those extra 15 minutes, right? Like my flesh did not want to sacrifice that time.
I did stay 17 minutes longer after you left,
did,
though. So
to be fair,
so I netted a higher amount of time in the fitness center.
Positive 2 minutes. I got you. But like that time, that was a sacrifice that we could have both slept in. We could have like got up at 8, and still filmed this podcast, whatever. But like we both consciously made a decision to sacrifice that time. And like, dude, I still don't have a 6-pack.
Right.
Like my muscles necessarily didn't grow today. But like if we do it long term, then eventually we'll see the result.
Sure.
So talk about sacrificing time. What does that look like practically?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's interesting, like so we all have the same amount of hours in a week, right? And I remember one thing that I learned early on was that how can I have the same amount of hours, be doing the same thing, but somebody gets such a different result and outcome in their life, right? And again, we all have very similar roles and goals and areas of our life that we're looking to level up. And I would just look at like, how does this person have so much success? This one, like, what does that look like? And what I found out is really being a great custodian of your time. And so when I started to audit, and this would be one practical thing I'd give you guys, is to really audit your schedule. And as you unpack that, just to give you guys some hope, if you've ever had this thought or if you've ever said these words, I don't have enough time, let me just kind of help you unpack that to give you some hope and a new way to look at that. Because the moment you say I don't have any time, man, you've just really just shut off the ability to create and innovate new ways to build your schedule in a way that's going to serve you. And so you look at the time as 168 hours in a week, right? So if we all sleep, like say you sleep 7 hours a night, that puts us at what, like 50 hours. So you got 118 hours after you sleep. And then for a lot of you guys, say you work 40 hours a week, right? So now you're at like around 80 hours that you have left over after you've already slept, which is a big block. You've already worked your 40-hour work week, yet you still have 80 hours roughly to do something with. And when I looked at it like that, man, it kind of smacked me in the face. I'm like, dude, I'm a sluggard, bro. Like it gave me this realization, one, man, I've been falling way short of custodian my time the way I should, because that's a lot of hours and I don't know how to account for those. And also gave me hope that, man, I can accomplish a lot more than I thought when I just went with the statement of I don't have enough time.
Yeah.
And so then you start unpacking like what's important to me, right? And you start looking at your schedule, and your schedule will oftentimes show what's a priority to you. And I remember hearing this, I think it was John Maxwell. He said, if you show me your schedule, I'll show you exactly where you're going to be in the next 2 to 5 years. So just show me your schedule. Go through your schedule book. If you've got Google calendars or if you've got a paperback calendar that you go through, he said, if you show me that, I'll show you where you're going to be. And in essence, what he's saying is like, it's very predictable.
Yeah.
Now, I like predictable things. Like, I don't like things that are just like, I'm not a big fan of surprises all the time, dude. Like, I like knowing that even if it's not showing up right now, it's predictable to know that it'll show up. I'm very logical. I like numbers because there's no emotion. There's no lying to them. And so I like being able to unpack and say, okay, let me audit my time. These 80 hours, what am I doing with them?
Yeah.
Like, how much time is going to me investing into my children? How much time is going to investing into my spouse? How much time is going into me building a business? And see, when I did that, I started to really kind of look at, and this is the biggest thing about it, Brian, is like once you really start looking at your schedule, that's tip one. You cannot expect what you don't inspect. No different than the person that's not where they want fitness wise. A lot of times they don't realize what they're eating. They're like, no, I'm good. I don't eat bad.
Yeah.
I don't eat a lot. It's like, oh, you feel like you don't. But then that's why, like, what was that? Weight Watchers? Mm-hmm. Is that what it was? Like, the reason why that worked was just people became aware of, they started tracking it.
Right.
So if you can start tracking your time and then making better sacrifices. So Brandon, I landed on this one when I started in the business. I had a lot of reasons why. I had a lot of reasons why I wanted to go out there and level up. I had a baby, all these different things that were going on. Newly married, and I started looking at my time, and I said to myself, if I'm in a season right now, and every season is different. Maybe for you right now, you're in a season where you can be a lot more like laissez-faire with your time, and great. But maybe you're in a season where there's things that are really, there's a big gap in some of these areas, Brand. Like maybe that's your marriage. You're just like, man, I can't stand looking at her. There's resentment. Maybe it's your finances. Like, dude, I can't get. There's certain seasons where you have to double down, and you can't afford to not have time left on the plate. It's got to all be devoured. And so I would call like a net, no extra time left. Like, what does your net look like? And so I got to this point where everything was accounted for. And I would do these little checkups throughout the day just to see how I was pacing with my time. And meaning that if I was in my car driving to go run appointments, I was recruiting to build my business because I wanted to make sure I was doubling that up.
It's really good.
If I was, we were driving
time stacking.
Exactly. Yeah. If we were driving down to go to like a family barbecue, I'd have Tosh drive, and I'd be dialing just booking appointments on the freeway. Like everything,
no, just not on the freeway.
Not on the freeway. No, that was back before she had a phobia. But I was. It was all super intentional, and so I mean that's where I would say with time,
right,
is your schedule is going to show you what you prioritize, and your schedule is also going to show you where you're going to end up. And I hope that gives somebody some hope.
So do you think like the opposite is almost true? Like people feel like they're more busy than they actually are. So, because most people go like what you said, I don't have time to do that. And they're not identifying the gaps in their schedule.
I think they're busy. They're just busy doing things that don't either improve their lives personally, spiritually, or financially.
Right.
Which if they don't do one of those things, I stop doing any of those things for a period of time.
Say that again.
If it wasn't improving my life personally, spiritually, or financially,
that's good.
It wasn't in my schedule.
That down.
That's
really good. So the sacrifice of time. I think I've definitely been guilty of like feeling like I didn't have enough time to do certain things, and then when I do that time audit, it's like, well, actually, I got 9 hours left in my day, and I didn't realize that I was scrolling Instagram for 2 of those hours, I was watching Netflix for 2 about, like
It's so fleeting.
yeah, it's so fleeting. You have no purpose in it. And so like audit your schedule, audit your time. What do you do when you get home? What are the conversations you're having? What are those? Are you investing your time wisely? Are you stewarding what God is giving you wisely? Or are you just coming home, saying hi to the kids for 10 minutes, sitting on the couch and watching TV? Like, how are you trying to improve your life? How are you trying to close the gap from where you are to where you could be? Because if you don't do something now, you're going to live in a constant state of frustration, of anger, of resentment, of regret. Because what's going to happen is you're going to live the same exact year that you just lived this year, next year. And you'll do the same exact thing again. You'll have all your New Year's resolutions again in January. And then come February, you'll be the same person. It's because you didn't take an audit of your time and you weren't willing to sacrifice what was felt good in the moment for what will feel good forever. And so, man, some of you right now, you need to sacrifice some things when it comes to your time. So maybe right now you love spending time watching TV. Let me just challenge you. Like, you might have to sacrifice that time. Why don't you get into a book? When's the last time you try to like educate yourself in anything? When's the last time you went on a date? Like, sacrifice some time. Like, for me as parents, we got 4 kids, and it's like, dude, all of them are in sports, but Brazil, and that's going to start here pretty soon. She'll be in sports. And the amount of time that we sacrifice for those kids to be at practice, to be at games, to be, driving around the state, to play in all these different tournaments, like the sacrifice is significant. Yeah. But when it comes to our personal development, when it comes to like us getting educated or growing spiritually, financially, personally, there's very little sacrifice amongst many people.
Yeah.
And it's just like people have become content with living the life that they're just stuck in and thinking this is it. But like, there's that still small voice on the inside of you saying, this is not it. Like, you're not at your max capacity yet. You're not maxing out.
Yeah.
Like, I went to the, again, the gym this morning, and I know what my potential is because at one point I was all in on my fitness. Right. So now that I'm getting kind of back into the journey and developing the habits again, I know I'm far under where I could be. And so I'm investing time in that area to bring it back up. And maybe for people out there watching, like their marriage was once at a place where it was like phenomenal, or their business or their finance, whatever it is. And you've gotten comfortable, you've gotten complacent. And so there's no more sacrifice. There's no more time. There's no more commitment in those areas. And you're experiencing the fall off, and now it's time to level up. Like, there has to be a sacrifice of your time if you want to grow.
Yeah. Hey, Brand, real quick to that point, then we're we'll tackle the third one. Is it's so easy to let your day dictate you opposed to you dictating your day.
Yeah.
And I think the first step for anybody that's like, you know what, I can relate to that. I agree with that. There's some areas that I can give up one thing and replace it with something that will actually allow me to go after what I really want. I think just having a time scheduled every Sunday night or Monday morning, find a time where you just really look at your schedule each week and just go through and look at your prior week. Did it serve you the way it should have served you? Because your time should serve you.
Yeah.
You shouldn't serve your time. And so as you go through that, I think it's going to help you come up with this awareness of, okay, what can I replace this with to make sure that I'm on point? Is that worth the time? And it's all the value proposition. Is this worth the time I'm putting in? It all has a price tag to
Absolutely.
it, right?
It's really good.
And that's kind of the next thing we want to talk about is sacrificing money, right? So the third thing is money. Are you sacrificing money and really unpacking what that looks like? So we've got feelings, we've got time. The third one is money. So kind of talk about that, Brandon.
Yeah.
What does that look like as far as sacrificing money?
So a lot of people get caught up in not having enough money for the month, right? The rat race. It's like, well, I pray the first is coming around again, so I get that paycheck because I'm a couple days short of money. Yep. What I found is that's always not necessarily true. I think that people have created a lifestyle that is maxing them out in a bad way. So they're not being wise stewards of the blessing of the money that God has given them now, and they're praying all day long for more. And it's like, man, if you can't be faithful with the little, then how are you going to be faithful with the much? And so it's not necessarily that there's more month than money. It's like, are you sacrificing? Are you taking short-term financial losses or sacrifices for a future gain that's much more significant than how I feel in this moment right now. Yeah. And I think that people are just not willing to give up their lifestyle. People are not willing to give up what feels good in the moment. Like, dude, you don't need all the subscriptions. Like, you don't need Netflix, Hulu, Disney, Apple. Like, you don't need, like, have one of them. But it's like, dude, well, I gotta watch the fight, so I need this streaming service. I need that. Like,
you don't get you now.
Oh, dude, you don't need.
They'll get
you. 100%. But like, can you sacrifice? Yeah. Like, you don't need Starbucks every day, right? It's like we went to we woke up Saturday morning a couple weeks ago, and we went to the new coffee shop in town. Shout out Solo Brew Coffee, right? And
Casey likes it too.
Oh yeah. It's a big deal, right? And so me and Mariah show up there. I'm thinking like it's like Starbucks, like it's like 2 seconds. You get there, you get your coffee, and go. Dude, there's a line out the door, bro. And I'm not the type. I'm not the type that's gonna stand there and for a coffee,
right?
Like, I need 5 minutes in and out. But Mariah, she's like, no, you have to try. And I've already had the coffee, so I'm like, I already know what to expect. And she's like, so we waited in line for like an hour. And I'm like, do you realize how much money and time and energy and like, you know what else we could have been doing? Yeah. Like, we could have went to Starbucks and bought 20 coffees. But it's like, but people do it every day. Like, they're spending their money on things that aren't necessarily like beneficial for them in the moment, and people don't want to modify or change their lifestyle now, sacrifice money and invest it somewhere that could be used later. It's like, dude, for the last 4 years, I was driving an $80,000 truck. Like, loved it, family truck, amazing, right? Mariah has a nice car, but like, I have a bigger dream, I have a bigger goal. So I was like, what do I need this truck for? Like, I'm the only one that ever goes in it. The kids never get any more. They're always with mom. If we drive as a family, we drive in Mariah's car. I don't need an $80,000 truck driving around. Like, my payment's big. I don't need it. But can I afford it? Yeah, absolutely. Like, so I sold it, made money on it. Now I drive an older work truck. Like, who cares? No one's thought about me any different. I still get to point A to point B. Like, it's same color. But I'm willing to sacrifice like the money I was investing into a truck that was doing me no value, because I know long term I'm going to be able to buy something of much greater value based on the sacrifice I made now. That's a little example, but like, I just think people aren't willing to do that anymore.
That's a great example, dude. I mean, I think that, at the end of the day, it goes back to that whole concept of short-term pain, long-term gain, or you could have short-term gain and long-term pain. And I think in today's world, man, it's so easy to have that short-term gain. Well, it's great. I like the way the coffee, I like the way I feel in the truck now. I like all those things, and those things can come, but in due season.
Yeah.
Where I say short-term, let me emphasize that, because guys, this is what it looks like. And I remember reading that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, when I was 19. And like, dude, it gave me such this of an aha moment of like, when I started making really good money, dude, I didn't go out there and buy a massive house. I didn't go do those things. In fact, I bought my first rental house before I had even really a halfway decent house. I mean, it was a tract home. It wasn't like I could have went and got a massive, big, but it was like, no, I'm going to sacrifice that lifestyle really prematurely, because it's a premature, like, I haven't earned it yet. But once I can build passive income up, and that comes from, just like, for instance, when you said the truck, and now that money can work for you, opposed to that money was really working on you. Like, it was having a toll on you. You couldn't go do nothing with it. And that's for anybody. And now you can sit back and say, hey, I'm going to take that. And then it's fun. It becomes a game. And I think that most people like playing games, and most people like winning the game. But it's so easy to get caught up realizing that, that's a game we're playing. Oh yeah, it's a financial game. Yeah, it's Monopoly. Call it whatever you want to call it. Like, that's the game. Right. And so if you go out there and like, keep up with the Joneses or whatever, just live it like, as you get a pay raise or whatever, like, now I'm going to go and get that RV, and I'm going to go get this, I'm going to go get that. That's great for a moment, but you're never going to have a breakthrough. So maybe if you spend just a couple years, maybe it's only 3-4 years, and you can take all that extra income and invest it into a real estate property, a second or third one, and now that money's working for you. Now you get to a place where you go get the RV, but it's with passive income. Right. Now that feels different.
Much different.
Now it feels different. Now the passive income is maybe paying for the RV that you really wanted. You feel so much better driving the dang thing, man. Like, you're not like...
You're not stressed.
Not stressed. And there's a different, now 100%. When something you're enjoying was purchased from passive income, bro, your smile looks different. You know what I mean? Like it just does. Cause like I paid the price in the short term.
Yeah.
And guys, that's such a big deal. And if it's business or whatever, like meaning that let's just say you're working a job, but you have this one day I want to own a business, right? Well, the first step is go work your job. Be diligent, man. Give it your whole heart. Don't start going 80% because you're
Quiet
like,
quitting.
yeah, like I really don't want to be there. I
Right.
kind of want to be in my business. I mean, give it 100%. I think God will open up doors when you serve the purpose in your current season, whether that's a boss, whatever. But you serve it wholeheartedly as if you're working to God, not to some human master. God will open up those doors. But when you give it 100%, and then you can take that additional income and you can put that towards your business and you burn it on both ends, that's where that sacrifice comes with time and money.
Really
Because
good.
I could be spending the money
Yeah.
on living a little bit better, but I don't want a little bit better, man. I want breakthrough. I want greatness. I don't want a little better. I want next levels. And so I think that's where it comes all in together is like, okay, now I got the time, the money, the feelings, all those. All right, I got it. I want to sacrifice all these and I'm going to put it in.
It's really good.
And the one thing that I want to wrap up with, because Brand, I've seen this with you in a big way. I remember when you started to sacrifice, and it's crazy how like you want to get people around you that make you feel almost like convicted for not doing the new you, like the you that you should be doing that's going to take you to a new level.
Yeah.
I remember we were stepped into ministry at a similar time, and you started to serve Wednesday and Sunday nights, and I'm like, dude, why are you like?
Yeah.
I was trying to justify like I didn't want to sacrifice like that, honestly.
Yeah.
And I looked up to it, and then I also was like, dude, like that's ridiculous. That's too much. I was trying to find ways to feel okay because I knew deep down like I needed to do more in that. Like God was calling me to do more in that area, to build my faith, to dive into ministry. And I saw the sacrifice, and I know that knowing the story as it's kind of transpired, right? You fast forward, and people walk into God's house and they're like, man, it's unbelievable, man. The culture, the worship, the message is like, it's so dialed in, and it's thriving, it's growing, it's changing lives. I mean, there's baptisms taking place this week. There's like probably hundreds of people.
Yeah.
I know every time it's like the message is 3.5 minutes because the
We
baptisms are
got a
like
baptism
4.5
on-
hours.
yeah.
But and that's like every 6 months, and that's what it's about. But when you were making that sacrifice, it was easier for you to make that sacrifice, I believe, because you saw what you're standing in now, back when it was just a dream,
Yeah.
a goal and a desire.
Right.
And you tied like what you were sacrificing to the future payoff. And you started to have these bag of reasons of why you were doing what you were doing, whether that was sacrificing your feelings,
Yeah.
the time and the money. And so if you can kind of step in and talk a little bit about like, the importance of building a bag of reasons, a bag of whys to be able to help everybody that's on this podcast that's maybe they're leaving and they've got a list of things they want to sacrifice.
It's really good.
But now it's like D-Day.
Yeah.
All right. You got it. You got the T chart. You got the list of what you're going to have to give up for it. But then the choice comes. That's the hard part. Talk about the bag of reasons, how essential it is to be able to make that right choice.
So for me, and just to touch on the ministry very quickly, is there was no reason for me to step into that ministry or serve. Like I didn't have a kid who was in junior high or high school. Like there was no reason for me to do that. It took from me like financially, it took from me like my time. Like there was no reason for me to give up other than like what God was doing in my life. Like God was significantly changing my life, And so there's a scripture that I love. It's Romans chapter 12, verse 1. It says, therefore, like I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, like to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to him. Like this is your true and proper worship. And so God was doing such a work in my life and in Mariah's life and in our marriage and like our kids that I almost felt like a sense of obligation to like in view in response of like how good God has been to me and like what he's done for me and like literally opened my eyes and our family's eyes to like a new way of living, that I felt like, God, I owe you like my time. Like I owe you like my gifts that you've given me. Like who am I not to pay you back with my life? And so I think in the moment, like there wasn't a reason for me to sacrifice other than like what God had been doing in my life. You know, clearly, like he was working a much bigger picture because it was in those years of sacrifice that was leading up to like what you mentioned, like the promise that we're sitting in now and like the transformation that's happened in so many people's lives. But like, so I don't know. I think in the moment, sometimes it's hard to see, like maybe why things are happening the way they're happening. But if you can have a bag of reasons, like you're talking about, like you can have that why, like why would I give up this time? Why would I give up this money? Why would I give up, my feelings? It's because you got something that's much bigger than you. And so for a lot of us, it's like, well, what you hear the saying a lot, like, what's your why? Mm-hmm. And it's easy for us to be superficial or like stay on the surface. Like, well, my why is my kids, or my why is my family, or my why is whatever. Right. But if you ask, well, why do you want your kids to, feel financially free? Why do you want to be able to take them on vacations? Why do you want to, have a nice house for them? You start peeling back those layers, you can get to the real why. And that probably takes a process of like self-awareness, like how was my past growing up? Like, why is all this significant? And you get to that real reason. And it could be like you were poor growing up. It could be someone hurt you growing up. It could be that you don't want your kids to experience the way you lived, or you don't want a divorce like how your parents got divorced, or whatever it is. But you start peeling back those layers of the real why, and you start holding this bag and you fill them full of reasons why you're actually going to sacrifice. Then the sacrifice becomes so much easier. Right. And so for me, like I got a bag full of reasons to sacrifice, like I feel like number one, in view of God's mercy, like in view of how good God's been to me, like that's a full bag in itself. Like I'm just going to live my life like because God's been so good to me, and because I can look around and look at your family, look at my family, like look at our extended family and look at the transformation that's happened. So that's a reason there enough, Secondly, like for me, like I feel almost an obligation to like my parents who raised me to be a leader, who raised me to have a successful life. Like if I don't, it's almost like I'm letting them down. And not that like there's some pressure to perform for my parents, because I don't feel that sense at all. But it's like, how could I not take what's been given to me, like this platform that I've been set on, and run with it as hard as I possibly can, And then we can just keep going. So it's like, man, God, like my parents, like I have 4 kids. They're not cheap. I want them to take what I've given them, and I want them to run so much further than me. Like I don't want the Courtney name to just stop with me. Like I want them to have a great life. I want them to be able to give back and bless people and change the community that they live in and change their world for the better, right? And so you can go on and on and on. So I think that the bigger bag of reasons that you got to sacrifice, then the easier the sacrifice then becomes, right? And so maybe for you, there's nothing, you can't think of any significant thing like, well, it's just hard for me to look up a good reason. Well, the fact that you woke up today should be a good enough reason for you to sacrifice. Like the fact that you're in America, right? It should be a good enough reason for you to go all out today. The fact that you have breath in your lungs should be a good enough reason for you to give everything you have, because man, there is purpose on your life. And so start to fill up that bag full of reasons. Like at church on Sunday, before I got into my message and kind of the worship team was still up there, I challenged the congregation. I said, begin to thank God. And everyone's looking at me like, for what? I'm like, for anything. And so I rattled off a list of like 100 things. I'm like, thank God for the grass. Thank God for the road. Thank God for the sky. Thank God for the cloud. Like I just begin to help them enter into a place of gratitude, enter into a place of thanksgiving, because when you can step into your life or your day with purpose and gratitude and gratefulness and thanksgiving, man, it's so much easier than to sacrifice my feelings or to sacrifice my time or to sacrifice my money, because like, dude, at the end of the day, we don't deserve none of this stuff. Like
it's all his.
It's all his.
Yeah.
It's a gift from God that we're even here, And so that's my perspective on it.
I love that, dude. I think that's such a big deal.
Yeah.
I think that's a practice, and we'll dive into it in a kind of a deeper dive too with the bonus content. Maybe give you guys a worksheet where you can, sit there and this is this is like a quiet time activity, right? Where you got to really spend time thinking about it, because I believe the people that are out there that have that, and when you look at something like, man, that person's just driven. Ever like that person's just ambitious, man. They're
you.
They're a go-getter.
That's what people think about you.
Well, maybe, I don't know, but when you look at different people and they're like, oh, that person they don't seem very driven. I think God puts that seed of drive in everybody, but the person that's not aware of the seed is not going to be able to use it.
Yeah,
and I think that when you kind of sit down and you have some quiet time and really think about like your why, like what's going to motivate you, what do you want to see take place, that's where you start to build up that desire and that drive and that ambition. I mean, you could read, the Bible talks about it. You look at success concept books like Personal Growth, like Think and Grow Rich. What's step one? Man, get a burning desire, right? Yeah. That's step one in success. Interviewing all these billionaires or whatever, like get a burning desire. Well, it doesn't just mean you wake up and the burning desire is there. You have to get it.
Yeah.
Well, how do you get it? Well, you got to think about what you want to have accomplished in your life. And I think that most people, and I've done this for years, coaching people saying, hey, what's your why? And I'd always ask that. Anytime I bring somebody on into my agency, I'd say, what's your why? And my answer was always like my kids or my family. But it was so vague, and nothing that's vague can actually really do anything permanent. Right. It's got to be specific. And so I'd go, like you said, like, well, why is that important? And you go like 7 layers deep, and then all of a sudden, man, now you get them crying.
Yeah.
And that was always there, but it was never noticed.
Right.
And if it's not noticed, it does nothing for you. And it's no different than, I read something on the Navy SEALs where they go through that process of really diving into their why. And why do they do that? Because they say when the level of sacrifice is at the highest peak, when they're in battle and you're tired, you haven't slept for days, you're cold, you're in pain, you're in agony, the future doesn't look promising. It looks like the end is near. The person to your left will ask you, why are you doing this? And all of a sudden, boom, they'll say there's a spark that gets brought back into that burning desire, gets placed back like, man, no, I got to keep going. Like this isn't about me. I got to keep going. And so I would just encourage you guys to really put together this bag of reasons is a first step. And then once you have the bag of reasons, the step 2 is to keep it in perspective, to keep it visible. Because if you're always thinking about the sacrifice, man, you're not going to last very long, right? Yeah. It ain't going to last very long. You go to the gym a couple of times. What happened? You started ignoring me at 5:30. You stopped focusing on how it was going to feel to be 55, 65, 70, playing with the kids still, feeling youthful, vibrant. You forgot that that's why you were doing it. And now you're just like, dude, this sucks waking up at 5 a.m., 4:30 and going to the gym. Yes, it does. But if you're focused on the payoff, it's not nearly as bad, right? And so, for me, it was like these reasons were, it was kind of like tears. One was survival. Like, dude, I didn't want to, like, I needed to survive. Yeah. So one reason to get up was like, dude, I got bills or stuff. I got to survive. And then you kind of go into like, external. Like I wanted to be able to have my mom, taken care of. I wanted to buy her a house. I wanted to buy her a car. I wanted to have her bills taken care of. She had $800 a month on Social Security. I mean, that's like, I don't know how it's physically possible. It makes zero sense. You know what I mean? And so that was a driving factor. I wanted to be able to donate 6 figures to the church. Like that was a big focus of mine a long time ago. And so like I had all these external things that I wanted to be able to do, not just because I wanted to do them, but because of the impact they were going to have on others and where that was going to go. Yeah. And then it was legacy. Like, how do I want to create a legacy? What does that look like? What do I want to be remembered by? There was virtues. Virtues is a bag of reasons. Like, who do you want to be known for? Right. I asked Payne on the way home, I said, hey, if you're at my funeral, and then she always does, she's like, Dad, you're always going deep, and then Tasha's like, here we go, there's a podcast going on. Yeah. I was like, no, serious. What would you say about me? And what would you want people to say? And it was just a great conversation, you know what I mean? Because like you don't think about it. Right. And I was just, for one, I was bored and I was trying to be productive because we were driving back from Vegas. It's like a 4-hour drive. But it's like, that's, you start looking at that and thinking about it now, it's impactful. It could be material stuff. Like, I want to live here. I want my kids to go to this school. I would eventually want to drive this car. That's okay. That can be an added to your, so I think people think I got to just have one reason. No, It's a bag of reasons.
Yeah, that's good.
And the heavier
Really
that
good.
bag is, the more it's going to anchor you to making the right choice today to go out there and hit your next level.
I like that picture in my mind, holding this big bag of reasons, and I can't let it go. So I have to stay doing what I'm doing, even though it's hard, even though it's cost me money, it's cost me time, it's cost me my feelings. This bag of reasons is so significant in my life that I can't let it go. So therefore, I'm going to serve wherever I'm at today, because man, I got this huge bag. I feel like Santa Claus, not holding gifts, but holding reasons why I'm going to be the next level me. So that's good, man. I love it.
I appreciate
I
you, bro.
This is value, dude.
It was, dude. Valuable to me, man, because I think that it's one thing to know something. It's another thing to be actually doing it. And I think that reminders to me, man, are so essential. And that's why I love the scripture that says, man, whatever is of good virtue, of praiseworthy, think about those things.
Yeah.
Why? Because there's so many things to think about. And I hope that this is something that, for me, I know it does it 100% when I get in here and I get to talk to you, Brandon. We have to have these discussions, and you kind of, you give some insight and add stuff, and it gets me thinking. And I hope it does the same thing for you guys. And so remember, a life leveled up is a life where you take one step at a time, and that step is worth taking. So take it today. Let's go out there and make it a massive week. Make sure to share this. I didn't even tell you, because I was
if you've made it this far, you better share it.
Yeah, like, subscribe. We want to get this message out, and I believe that our calling is to help more people just have some good stuff to kind of consume. I know I appreciate it every single week that I hop on and I listen to these podcasts that I listen to. I know we talk about it, the podcast you're listening to, and it's just to provide more good stuff to consume, so that way you can go out there and think bigger, live better, and take your life to that next level. So guys, make it a big week. We appreciate you joining. Be strong, stay steadfast, and we'll talk to you soon.
Love you guys.
See you guys.